Yeah, she would just arch her back and she'd never get comfortable.
Well, that's what we're talking about today, is arching the back, and that's why, because it is nice to have a baby to see what we should be moving like and what we ended up with. So, I did ABM training. Although I'm no longer a practitioner, I still did the training, I'm still certified in it. But I walked away about 3 years ago, just to get politics out of the way. Before I did my training, my kyphosis was really bad. So, I brought in my fun little x-rays for a lot of reasons, to show rotation. So this is my, just even without seeing me, you can see how much my head just tilts to the side. Now if you look at the sucker up close, and I'll pass it around if you want, my profiles don't even line up. Each vertebrae is completely torqued, twisted. So this is how bad the crease in my lower back was. You know, like I said, I'll throw them up against the window if you want. But just to show, hold on, because the rest aren't going to show up right off the bat. I also have to admit, I don't think I've stolen anything in my life. I had to get these x-rays for a chiropractor, and my girlfriend was a rad tech, and she kind of snuck me in. So in other words, I stole x-rays, so I apologize. Where's my hump? Hold on. Whack! Again, these are other headshots. You can see, I mean, my tilt was totally there. I mean, and she went in there to look at, had the jaw open to look at C1, so I was just permanently tilted to the front part. I'm looking for, because so also, because I had to go, like I said, I was going to a chiropractor, so you can see the top part of my hump, how bad it was.
Oh.
So here, and also if you look at it, so my C2 is like totally out, almost a ½ inch, and right here you can see my C7 was out a ½ inch. So I literally had, bumps out my back, and so my first, I think like third day into training, we were doing something, and all of a sudden I heard this snap. I'm like, wow, things just got so much easier. The pelvic floor dropped, the pain through my 4 days, I just thought I died getting in and out of the car. I felt like I was just kicked by donkeys. I'm literally walking around like, oh. And they just joked about me, like, you did too much. And I'm like, what? But when I was taking a shower, I'm like, where'd my hump go? Now, I still was here. I mean, literally, so if you can see here versus where it is now, you know what I mean? Like, so I did my training, this was in 07, so we're in 14. So basically at 43 years old, I'm starting to change the way my back is. So like I said, if you actually want to look at these and how funky it is. Also, my other proof is, if I'd gone to an orthopedic surgeon, someone would have been sharpening their knives big time.
Oh, yeah.
Now, just for the record, even then, well, I shouldn't say that. I was in pain then, but not like debilitating pain. I'm in no pain now whatsoever. Except for my foot that I hurt.
Well, I know what Bobby's life was like before.
So, and just, as a reminder, this is, quote, what a normal spine should look like. And literally, I mean, to sit like this, I couldn't, one of my things that happened during training, because to sit, I couldn't cross my legs. I mean, my back, my legs had no place to go. So the first time I was able to, and I still can't, quote, come over my pelvis like I'd like to, but this is, again, pure mathematics of the back and the spine. You're going to be worked on, just not at this moment.
Did you get yourself tangled?
No, I just wanted to see your face.
So, one of the things on the Facebook today from a Feldenkrais site was a quote, a PT had met Feldenkrais, and he was just showing this one example. And the example was if she was lying, the woman was here, and go to the point where the twist was comfortable, and then complete by lifting the legs up. So what I thought was interesting, not so much the ATM, but I still have, and the bane of my existence, where I still was 43 years of age in this position. My bones have formed around a kyphosis. All the work in the world, I still have bones that are shaped to me and what happened. So when I go to twist, what I thought was interesting, because right here where if I specifically only work from here to here, that twist is just, I can't take the motion at this moment and move it through my spine. Now if I do the whole back, see now I have more of the rotation here, and also the way my kyphosis is, gravity affects me differently, so the way my back comes down to the ground. Now, and this is where I'm gonna pick on Arlie, if she'll let me, what babies can do so naturally, I mean, I can do it, but I still feel where when I do it rounded and then back up, you know, where she can go like this and do an object and eventually get to her belly. And, you know, if I were to do a back bend, again, this is where I just don't even know where to start, because I don't have that continual motion or extension through my spine like a typical spine would have. However, I know how to work with my body to move around it, so it's not that it's a problem. Most people would see that as a complete fault and I need to fix it. Well, I don't know if I can fix it or not. I'm always working on it, and even on myself I can get in here where I'm trying to, but these three vertebrae, oh my gosh, if all I do is teach you guys how to fix me here, I would just be a happy duck. So, but see, to bring here, now baby, it's almost like there's a string here, and that extension should be through the spine. See, now if I work with it, I can definitely move it. And by the way, stuff I'm doing, I'm probably still doing much better than any of you guys are, because you've never played with it. So, you know, where I might be a nitpicker or seem like a complaint, but the movement properties of the spine, and this is what I feel is not shown, because most of the times when you look at a spine, they show, you know, that it just does this or it goes this way. But really, see now even the difference of me playing with it, see the difference in the twist versus what I just had. So again, through here and working with the whole shoulder cavity and allowing, and this is how I work on myself, my ribs to work on specific areas of the vertebrae. And so, and now my acceleration changes because I'm more familiar with the movement. So, and another thing that has to happen is the counterbalance. I can't take my feet and make them rigid, my hands rigid, and now expect my spine to twist like that. And this is what I just worked on with you. So if I were to take something like this and to keep, let's say, my hands in this, you know, my spine is just like, what the heck? And this is cerebral palsy, or this is a stroke. These are properties that can happen through, you know, people like to pick on brain injuries, but I just say trauma in general. Even if someone has a whiplash, these are properties that someone has to deal with, because the movement, that extension, and that's what a baby does, they start doing, you know, the push and the shove, because they're playing with this, but also that twist. So a baby plays with that. Here, I'll do it this way too. But, so I'm just looking today at properties of the upper spine, but if you notice, when my spine twists, I need to counter. That counter and that rotation is there. The more that rotation is there, I can do something. And you cannot be a professional ballerina, ice skater, anything that has to do when you don't have individual toe rotation even. That rotation has to be at such a sophisticated level, which you and I don't normally deal with. And this is one of the biggest problems too that happens with, quote, seniors, because the foot starts to get injured, doesn't work on mobility, and the mobility, the toes go. But most people think toes, again, up and down, versus that individual rotation. Just getting that individual rotation, you're going right through the pelvis. It goes absolutely just like I just showed with you. That conversation needs to be there. So even with me, so now, you know, and then I can rotate the foot. So that's where people go, oh, you're flexible. Actually, and that's another fun thing with me, I have femoral torsion. So here, I'll go this way. I had bars on my feet. So you can see where my femur doesn't even go on my leg. So when I go to bend my knee in this position, and it really shows up in karate, because I don't do a back stance, because I can't bring my knee out, because my knee now is actually here and my leg is here. So I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's still, I've learned to work around it so I can do something like this and work on a butterfly. But it's not going to be the same. I can never do a split like a gymnast. But I can't do a split like a gymnast either, because the way my back wants to go, and I'm overemphasizing it right now, but in this position, because if you see the gymnast, they can bring the spine and move it out of the way to do a split. And even that, see, that's where you can really see where I shorten my neck. But like here, I can't, you know, this is where I'd love to be able to go.
Elongated at.
Well, it just,
Yeah.
I can't bring my head right here back over my spine. And so, because no matter what I do, my spine really wants to hook here, and you can feel it, versus where I can bring my spine back over my C7, or the top part of my upper thorax. But this is where you'll see the brilliance in a baby. Now, however, this is where professionals go, well, your C7's out and this, that. What am I going to do about it? You know, no one is trained medically to consider movement patterns. And also, anyone to look at me would concentrate on this, and I can rip my body apart. And I have the flattest feet in the world. I have my femurs are off, all of this. But as long as I know that and I work around it, who cares? You know, I have scoliosis, I've got, you know, now at least if you look at me now, you're not seeing my head go like this all the time. But could you imagine walking around your whole life like that and not even notice it? That's the scary part. So when I approach someone, just seeing someone like this, I already, even just in psychology, I don't have power to look at you like this, dead on the eye, versus, you know, it's just a total different persona that I even appear to, even just to work my conversations around somebody. So even if I go to get mad, I'm getting mad more like Valley Girl, you know, or I was. And I still might have that habitual patterning, but again, even though I, quote, have the camera on me all the time, I don't look at, quote, me all the time either, because I'd go insane. Right? So should I show it on you, Miss Ladybug? Hold on, let me get my shoes on. My table is, I say this all the time for people who have been here, is built for my height, which is with shoes on. So when I go to work on someone, just having my shoes off, just having just this difference throw, now I'm not saying I can't give a lesson without my shoes on, but it's distracting to me because I'm looking
Feeling
for
like you're,
my proportions here versus here, which is typical. Now, I keep my brain, I should say, on a very active level. I do this work, so I'm constantly movement all day long, versus, let's say, sitting behind a computer, not to pick on that profession, because lots of times nowadays we have jobs, just have jobs. I do karate, I do, I'm about to do some belly dancing for a couple of weeks. So I'm always, quote, playing with movement. But, so I can adjust to this, but the more a person's brain stagnates, and one of the things that adds to short-term memory losses and then dementia is the shrinking. Because your whole life, let's say you're 6 foot tall, you have a visual complexity of a 6 foot tall person. Now you're now 5'11", but your brain's slower. What I mean slower, just like I showed on your foot, that acceleration can change in your system instantly. But if it doesn't, you're walking, what'd you have for breakfast this morning? I don't know, because your brain can't handle the visual stimulation and your normal functions. But I'm not saying you're never going to shrink even if you do this work, but if you do this work and you keep your body, again, physical, I'm on the floor, I'm up, I always change my visual complexity by doing all that I do. So when you do that, your body's more used to it. It doesn't seem like it's a shock, And that's why people that are active stay younger, because you're using your system as a whole instead of pieces apart. That's great, you do Sudoku, but that's still not going to help the overall picture. You still have to integrate it and incorporate it into your life. You can't drive and do Sudoku. So just because you do certain things, but most people do it at a very stagnant level. And they think they're helping their mind, but they're helping their mind here versus, like if they knit, they do it at the same chair, at the same place, so. And also that's where you see people have problems that they can only do certain hobbies in certain areas. So you can pick on me now because even though I just said that, I said I can only do a lesson with this table with my shoes on. It's just, I can give a lesson on anybody, anywhere, whether it's in a restaurant, this, that, and the other. I just know I'm more at an optimal level when I have shoes on because my proportions are, this is where I've incorporated most of my high-end movements around my proportions with the shoes on. Because there, see again, you can see the table is perfect for the back of my knees with shoes on. So, any questions?
I've gotten where I found out with competition, I do really well at certain places, and it's like you said, there's a certain comfort and familiarity, and it's a stretching boundaries, it's stretching yourself, and it's amazing how much just broadening.
But it's also about not judging yourself when you're doing it. Instead of saying, and a lot of people go, gosh, I've competed in this place the last 3 times, and it's bad luck to me, and this. To already start throwing curveballs into it. You really see it like with tennis, where some people are just excellent clay, or clay really shows how weak they are as a tennis player versus playing on grass and playing on a hard surface court. Or same with riding. Some people like to only ride over an inside stable, or some people, like the open fields and deal with rocks and all sorts of uneven surfaces. But also, when you're starting to get into that, you're fortunate because if you really watch movement with the animals or the dogs don't have that kind of processing. Humans are the ones that are more messed up with that kind of processing. I'm doing driving, you know what I mean? Versus I'm in this car, I'm this, I need to adjust the seat here, I need to, they're just like, let's go.
Well, you just described my mother to a T. She just moved from out of state to Oregon. Her short-term memory loss is a lot worse than we thought. She's diabetic, so she's not moving. Problems with her feet. She does Sudoku all the time to keep her brain sharp, but no movement. She does the same thing in the same place every day.
So probably the best thing to do with her to start off with, but to keep it simple, are daily walks.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have it always in the same we go around the block this way, try to the left, but don't go overboard. Don't go be like, okay, we're walking down here today, we're walking down. Right now, just getting where it's familiar, because so she can adjust to her surroundings. And then also how you stand with her. So if you're walking, let's say, start walking on the left side and then on the right side. So then she needs to, and then when you walk a little bit on the right side and then on the left, so she's naturally, because that's the one thing that really stops to go in senior, is that I should have full head rotation. So if I want to look at you like this, I can still turn my whole body around, you know what I mean? And then flip it back and then come back to where I was. But people of age, autism, ADD, all of those neurological impairments can't handle that kind of rotation. So they'll stay in this position, or if I go in this position, you're now dead with me. I mean, you're out of sight, out of mind. And that again is where not only the short-term memory goes, but the socialization. And what's really bad too is if that person then is fixed on TV.
My husband only turns this way.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I completely know just what you're talking about. It's,
But then it throws him because he's
Yeah,
most likely
absolutely.
right-handed and he's only looking this way. So, and if you watch me too, I very rarely wash my hands. It's like driving a car. I don't wash my hands and drive a car. I kind of crash. So. Or skiing or whatever, you can't wash your hands, but you still want it in your peripheral. And here I have them in my peripheral, but if you're constantly only looking to this side, and you really see that in the babies that are visually impaired. I even have a client right now that has clogged teardrops, and it's really my concern because of the haziness of the eyes at that young, that the brain is going to, turn it off, but also he's not still getting a movement vocabulary, because if the eye is a little bit compromised, he's going to be more likely to grab an object from this side versus this side. Feldenkrais was so fussy too, there were suggestions of putting your crib in the middle of the room, just so the baby had equal stimuli, but most kids too, the way they start to favor their head, usually because mom is right-handed, puts the baby down this way, and then wherever the light source is. So if the wall is this way, but the door or the light is this way, then their heads are naturally going to go that way. And that's probably more your husband, since he didn't crawl and only looks one way, probably was that stimuli when he was in.
well, it's more that he doesn't, turn left and right. It's that the whole body, whenever he turns, it's the whole.
Well, when you haven't crawled, you haven't crossed midline. So, properly, I should say. I'm not saying just because I say this, but I'd say on the 98 percentile. So when I'm crawling, I should be able to naturally get something here and here. But see, crawling, see how my head is? That's reading, that's writing, that's all of that. So riding a bicycle,
Light bulbs.
So if he's never crawled, he literally, to look at something over here, has to totally place himself so his vision is there versus where he can rotate through the
I
body.
wonder if you did a study of people who crawled and people who didn't crawl, what the handwriting sample would look like.
Well,
Because everyone,
that's getting shot now because they don't teach handwriting in school.
Yeah.
But basically in my world, if you can't do this, if you can't do a circle here or you can't do a circle here, how are you going to do a circle here? So,
do that one more time. No, with your hand.
Bobblehead.
probably not because your hand was restricted. So, she's neat. She's on video. Her hand was burned when she was 6 months old.
Can I take it to my chest?
And
Oh, wow.
No.
so she learned how to crawl and do all of this.
I remember you, Rob.
Yeah. So they called me Boo Boo.
So she fell and broke her foot, or toe, I should say, sorry, in the hospital when she was a newborn. And then, so she goes, will you work on my foot? Because it hurts, it
I
hasn't.
said it won't heal.
So I looked at the other foot and I was like, literally I'm thinking, what the hell is this? Because she had no rotation off that ankle because of the chest was strapped.
Mhm.
So then she goes, well, would it make a difference if I didn't crawl, but my hand was strapped to your chest? Well, how do you like that counterbalance as a baby and trying to get around and doing stuff? back then too, there's no PTs for babies, much less. Even today, if a kid breaks his leg and when he's done with the leg being broken, I had a 60-year-old man, he goes, you can't help me. I'm fat and I'm old. But he'd come in with some friends, so I'm like, oh, just sit down, I'm just gonna do a quickie. So I lifted the one leg and he went like this, I lifted the other leg and he went like that. Did it again. So when did you break your leg? When I was 14, why? And I said, good, you're still in a cast. Because he just immediately, it was at a 90-degree angle like he had a boot cast on. And he's 68. So when he was done, he laughed like the Cowardly Lion. I'd work on it again just to hear that laugh. He's like, oh, oh. He's like, I can walk, you know. But, you know, who would associate that? So he just assumed I am what I am, you know. I call men Popeyes.
No.
You know, I am what I am. Or they come to me, you ever buy a new house, or you know when they go around with the blue tape, this needs to be fixed, this needs to be fixed?
Yes, I'm very familiar with that part.
Well, men, especially over the age, let's say of 60, not so much with the newer generations yet, it's like they're walking around with blue pieces of duct tape. Well, I did this in 1946, I was on a boat and whatever, and this happened, and I get out. And they have like all these memory spots of, I'm like, okay. So, do you ever think that you're like a whole body?